Alright, Shalom. Let's start off by saying Barakatay Hawa. Shem Shai, Shem Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is pretty much that Neophyte spirit. And pretty much, those of you brothers that have been studying, the term Neophyte is a Greek term in the scriptures in the book of Timothy, known as a novice. And pretty much, from time to time we make videos on it because you always have the new crop of individuals that come up and do and say the things that they do and say. But we don't really get mad because we understand that the scriptures and the prophecies have to be fulfilled. Like the scriptures say, there are some men that are crept in unawares. Yahweh Shai said that it is impossible, but that offenses must come. But woe to that man by whom the offense comes. So the offense is not if the offenses are going to come, but when and by who these offenses are going to come. So I was watching the video with the up and coming Elder Ramah, out there in England, and I noticed Elder Pastor uploaded it. A few other brothers uploaded it. I re-uploaded it to my channel, and pretty much, you always have this new crop of individuals that come up, and each group that comes up is usually more wicked than the previous, and what it is these guys learn a few scriptures. Satan enters into them, and they actually believe that the Lord is dealing specifically with them and not with anybody else. And you could see when this individual is speaking that he really believes in his mind that the Lord is specifically just dealing with him and nobody else, But that's them demons that have entered into him, or that are magnified, because from what I understand, brothers have talked about it and said that he was a proud individual anyway to begin with. But you see that spirit is out there, and this is why the scriptures say, examine yourself. Scriptures say pride, knowledge puffeth up, pride goeth before a fall, so on and so forth. So it's important to constantly examine oneself, whether we be in the faith or not. Now, the Passover is coming up soon, it's going to be coming up soon, and it never fails. Every time that the Passover is about to roll up, there's some incident that usually happens, either before, during, or after, and in some cases, before, during, and after, that something happens with certain individuals and they start tripping, bugging out, and being exposed, So you see this leaven that's entering into these guys, and all of a sudden, they are the master teachers, and we're just some flunkies on a corner somewhere, some old, washed up dudes, Well, the scriptures say, grow old in thy work. We came in this thing when we were young men. There was not a lick of gray on either one of us. You hear testimonies from the apostles. I myself, the Lord brought me in when I was 24 years old, and that same year I turned 25, and that seems to be like out of the 4 apostles, 3 came in at that age. Elder Rakah, was a special case that the Lord brought in a lot earlier, but nevertheless, around 24, 25 years old, a man has pretty much experienced the world. They experience clubs, driving, women, drinking, getting high, or whatever the case is. So they've experienced all those things. But that's why, some individuals come in this thing when they're too young, and then they're falling out because they never had a chance to experience life. We've had examples of that. Certain brothers came in to the truth. They were super young. I mean, they were on fire, There's one I dig the brother's spirit. I love the brother, but he came in too young, and then when he started, little, a little bit of trim from these chicks, he lost his mind, and talking about he never lived his life, but it is what it is. So usually around 24, 25 years old, a man has pretty much experienced what they're going to experience in the world. And from that point on, it's just a thing of repetition. Experiences grow with the repetition of what have a photographic memory. And they can remember every scripture, every breakdown. So they get puffed up and proud. As to where other brothers, they learn, but it's like their memory ain't that great. They got to rely on other brothers to bring up the scripture that they're trying to find. But those be more than likely the men that the Lord deals with. Because the other individual has nothing there to buffet him. They have no chastisement to where the Lord will keep a man humble. And those chastisement and things that happen of that nature, they are novice, which is a neophyte, and they fall into the condemnations. They start, I listened to a video, and the video I was listening to, on it, but it sounds something along those lines. Brothers can correct me if I was wrong on that. But that's what I saw in the video. That's what I picked up out of it. I could be wrong, but the bottom line is, you have to watch out for individuals like that. The scriptures speak about marking a man that causes division contrary to the doctrine, and you got to know that the Most High hates. Causing this contention and this, strife among brothers, trying to divide brothers, trying to pin possible that comes from, but nevertheless, the scriptures must be fulfilled. And until all the scriptures are fulfilled, the end cannot come. So not only are we waiting for the microchip, which is a mark of the beast, World War III, and other things in prophecy, another part of the prophecy is individuals that are not right, getting the magnifying glass put on them and eventually kicked out. So you have this neophyte spirit that's been around. You've had many examples of it for you brothers, in the YouTube era brothers. You've had many examples. We've seen thousands of examples over the years, going back, to the old schools that we had, and it's the same thing over and over again. The guy comes up, he's running top speed, he learns scriptures quickly, he learns breakdowns quickly, then he turns against his teachers, telling you breaking this down wrong, you breaking that down wrong. But oddly enough, the one thing that you really can't prove in the scriptures, as far as the pronunciation of the names of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, which you technically can't really prove, those are the one things that they just sure about. They just know, and they cling on to that, and they could change the whole doctrine, but for some reason, those names, they cling on to them and never let those names go. And I used to wonder why, but I understand why, because Yahweh Shai said, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom. He said, many are going to come to him in that day and say, Lord, we have done this, we cast out devils, we did this, we did that, we did the other, we did all of this. And then the Lord say, depart from me, ye that work iniquity, for I never knew you. So pretty much, that's the reason, why they continue to hold on to those names, because the Lord is going to use that pretty much to judge them. So I just wanted to say a few words on that neophyte spirit. It was on my spirit to do it. I figured since I had a little ride that I would speak on it, because you brothers seeing what's going on, and you have been seeing what's going on. Those of you brothers that have been here for a while, you just got to check that spirit at the door. Remember, we didn't wake ourselves up to this. The Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, woke us up using men before us to wake us up. So for us to wax proud, is futile, because the bottom line is either two things: either don't deal with this, or deal with it and and try to the best of your ability to do the right thing. So pretty much, like I said, to say a few words on that. Scripture say, not being a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, you fall into the condemnation of the devil. And we've seen it time and time again. You know, there's a new crop of demons cropping up. Passover's around the corner, and every time Passover comes around, there's always some drama that comes with it. You know, and the Lord is pretty much washing the leaven out. So with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified. And to the next time I say, Shalom.